Have you ever noticed how sometimes the quietest person in the room turns out to be the one holding the greatest secret? On Flight 729 from Chicago to Los Angeles, she was just a quiet girl in seat 14A, tucked away by the window, headphones in, hardly anyone noticing her. But before the flight touched the ground, every single passenger on that plane would know her name. Because when the pilot collapsed and the radio screamed out the word Mayday, the fate of everyone on board rested in her hands. Stay with me till the very end, because this story will leave you breathless. And before we begin, I want to welcome you to Grow for Justice, the channel where we bring you stories of courage, survival, and the kind of human spirit that makes you believe in miracles. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments. Where are you watching this from right now? The morning was calm, the skies clear, and the passengers boarding Flight 729 had no reason to believe this would be anything other than a routine trip. Families juggled strollers and snacks. Businessmen spoke quickly into phones, and tourists clutched their cameras, excited for the adventure ahead. And then there was her. Amelia Carter, 16 years old, a soft-spoken, quiet girl who preferred books to parties, headphones to conversations, and the window seat over everything else. Seat 14A. To anyone looking, she was just another teenager, traveling alone, a little nervous, maybe even a little awkward. No one paid her much attention, and she liked it that way. The engines roared, the plane lifted, and the city fell away beneath the wings. Amelia tucked herself into her corner, eyes glued to the horizon. What nobody on that flight knew, what even the crew didn't know, was that Amelia had grown up in a world far different than the one her classmates knew. Her father, an Air Force pilot, had taught her everything about the skies before he passed away in a tragic accident 2 years earlier. She spent countless nights with his old flight manuals, hours on simulators, and weekends volunteering at a small airfield where she could at least sit inside the cockpit of tiny aircraft. She wasn't licensed, she wasn't trained for commercial jets, but she knew more about flying than anyone could have guessed. 1 hour into the flight, passengers settled into their routines. Drinks were served, trays clattered, the hum of conversation filled the cabin. Amelia leaned against the glass, letting herself drift. That's when it happened, a sudden jolt. Not from turbulence, but from the intercom. A flight attendant's voice, strained, urgent. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need medical assistance at the front of the aircraft. If there's a doctor on board, please come forward immediately." The word like a spark in dry grass. Panic spread quickly. Passengers whispered. A man stood, rushing down the aisle. And then the rumors began. "The pilot! It's the pilot!" Minutes later, the whispers were confirmed. The captain had collapsed in the cockpit. His pulse was faint, his breathing shallow. The co-pilot tried to remain calm, but when turbulence struck again, rattling the jet, his voice broke through the radio with one word: Mayday. Every passenger felt it in their bones. Fear, the word no one ever expects to hear in real life. Children began crying. Adults clutched armrests, staring wide-eyed at one another. And there in 14A, Amelia felt her chest tighten, not with fear but with something else. Something deeper. Responsibility. The co-pilot did his best, but it quickly became clear he was inexperienced, overwhelmed, and struggling to keep the plane steady. The attendants whispered urgently, "We can't land without help. We can't do this alone." And then came the question over the intercom. "Is there anyone on board with flight training experience?" Silence. Dozens of faces turned, scanning each other, waiting for someone to rise. No one did. Amelia's hands shook. She was just 16. She wasn't supposed to be here, wasn't supposed to be this person. But her father's voice rang in her mind, steady as ever. "One day, Amelia, skies will test you, and you'll know exactly what to do." Before she knew it, her hand was in the air. I can help." The flight attendant blinked. "You? You're just a kid." But Amelia's eyes didn't waver. "My dad was Air Force. I've trained. I know what to do." There was no time to argue. The co-pilot was yelling into the radio, alarms blaring, altitude dropping. With passengers watching in disbelief, Amelia was rushed to the cockpit. She slid into the captain's seat, heart pounding. Her fingers hovered over the controls. She whispered to herself, just like the simulator, just like Dad taught me. Air traffic control was already on the line, their voices calm but urgent. Flight 729. Who's flying? The co-pilot answered, voice breaking. She is. A 16-year-old passenger. Name's Amelia Carter. There was silence. Then, all right, Amelia. We're with you. We'll talk you through this. The next hour was a battle between fear and courage. Amelia steadied the plane, adjusted the throttle, corrected the nose when turbulence threw it off balance. Her palms were slick with sweat, her breath shallow, but her focus unbroken. The passengers had no idea who was in command until the announcement came. This is Amelia Carter. I'm in seat 14A. I'm flying this plane. Gasps. Tears. Some passengers prayed. Some cheered. Strangers held hands, their fates tied to a teenager who had been invisible just hours ago. The descent into Los Angeles was the longest of Amelia's life. The runway stretched before her, narrow, merciless. Air traffic repeated. Flaps down. Gear down. Ease into it, Amelia. You got this. Her father's voice echoed louder now. Trust the instruments. Trust yourself. The wheels hit the ground with a deafening screech. The plane lurched, bounced, then steadied. The cabin shook. Passengers screamed, bracing for disaster. But Amelia pulled the yoke with precision, guiding the jet down the runway until it slowed, and finally stopped. Silence. For a moment, no one breathed. Then the cabin erupted. Cheers, applause, sobs of relief. People unbuckled, rushing to the cockpit door. The co-pilot turned to Amelia, eyes wide with awe. Kid, you just saved over 200 lives. Amelia leaned back, tears slipping down her cheeks. We did it, Dad, she whispered. When the doors opened, firefighters, medics, and ground crews flooded in. The captain was carried out, still unconscious but alive. Passengers poured into the terminal, shaken but safe. And Amelia? She stepped out quietly, her small backpack slung over her shoulder, vanishing into the crowd before reporters could swarm. To the world, she was the quiet girl in seat 14A. To the people on flight 729, she was the reason they got to hug their loved ones that night. And that, my friends, is the story of Amelia Carter, the quiet girl no one noticed until the world had no choice but to see her. Heroes don't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes they're just kids by the window seat, carrying secrets too big for the world to see. Until destiny calls, if this story gave you goosebumps, don't forget to subscribe to Grow for Justice for more stories like this. Stories of courage, sacrifice, and the human spirit at its very best. And before you go, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. Because no matter where you are in the world, stories like these connect us all.